Hi everyone, welcome back to another session of Salesforce admin training. In this session, we'll understand the need of duplicate rules in Salesforce and how do we create it. Okay, so first of all, I'll just, as the name is very explicit, right? Just by saying the name of these rules, you'll understand that why should we even create them, right? For example, a duplicate rule, what could it be? It could be just to prevent creating duplicate records inside Salesforce, right? So it is exactly the same thing what you're thinking about it. So one of the main things that you need to keep in mind, right, that we create duplicate and matching rules in Salesforce so that in order to maintain data integrity, so that your data in the org will be more cleaner and it will be more reliable, right? And having a duplicate rule in place also gives the benefit to users, right? So let's say if somebody goes ahead and tries to create a record, and let's say if that record already exists in the system, then that user will get to know, right? That user will either be notified based on the duplicate rule, or that user will be blocked, right? In order to create the before creating the duplicate. So basically, you can either create a warning or you can even block user just by creating duplicate and matching rules, which will prevent user to create the duplicate records. Okay, and not only this, let's say if you already have a lot of data in your org, then as per the requirement of the client, or any kind of data analysis that is done, right? So a lot of reports are also created, right? So let's say if you have duplicate records in your org and a report is created on a particular object data, then that report will not show the accurate results, right? Because there are duplicate records, and then nobody will even come to realize, or it will be a lot of hectic manual job in order to eliminate the duplicates, right? So it is better to have a duplicate rule in place so that any kind of duplicate creation can be prevented. All right, so let's just go ahead and see how it can be created in the org. So I am navigating to my org, and I'm taking this object as an example. So I have this object called employees. Okay, so let me just show you what are the fields that I have kept on this object. It's just employee name, email, and employee ID, right? So for example, let's say this one. Even in fact, emails are also unique, but I'm taking the example of employee ID, or we can take example of combination of both of these fields. It's totally fine. Whatever scenario you can think about, it's totally fine based on your requirement. So I can create a duplicate rule where if somebody goes and tries to create a new employee record, and if they enter the same email ID, then they will get a warning that there's already an employee record exists with this employee ID. Okay, so either you can put a warning or you can totally block the user. Okay, and then also you can do the same thing on this field as well, employee ID, right? That if someone tries to create another employee record with ID 1, then you can block the user in order to create a duplicate record. All right, or you can create a duplicate record having the combination of both of these criteria, right? If the email ID and employee ID matches, then prevent the record creation. All right, now let's just go ahead and see how it can be done. So I'll move to quick search. Here you need to search for duplicate rules. Click on duplicate rules, and so here you can see there are already two duplicate rules, standard duplicate rules that are already existing, but I'm going ahead and creating a new one. So here you need to select the object on which you want to create the rule. So I'm selecting the employee object here. So here first you need to define the name of the rule. Okay, so employee dup rule. Okay, now here there are two options: enforce sharing rules and bypass sharing rule. Okay, so if you hover over this, then you'll get to know that what are these two things. So if you see this one, enforce sharing rule, it says the matching rule compares only records that the user has access to, and the resulting list of possible duplicate includes only record the user has access to. Okay, so for example, if you see, right, so in this org I am logged in with my user. Okay, and I'm going ahead and creating an employee record. So for example, right now I'm only able to see one employee record. Okay, let me switch it to this one, all. There's just one record that I can see, which I have access to, okay? So let's say if I click on new and I'm trying to create a record with a total different detail, okay? Let's say I've filled in some name, but let's say if I'm giving an employee ID as 2. But just imagine if there is already an employee record exist with this ID, okay? It is there in the org. The only thing is that I don't have access to that employee record, okay? So I'm only able to see this employee record, but there is already a record existing in the org with employee ID 2, but it's just it's the only difference is that that record is not, I don't have access to that record. It's not shared with me, okay? So this option says, do you want to enforce sharing rule? So that means if you click on this option, right, then what will happen? The matching rule compares the records that the user has access to, okay? If I keep on checking this, then I will actually be able to create the record, right? Because this particular option will only allow for this rule to check for me what records I have access to, okay? So it is only going to compare against the records that I have access to. It is not going to check the entire org. All right. So that is the meaning of enforce sharing rules. The second one is bypass sharing rule. Okay. So if I select this option, then I will not be able to proceed with this. Okay. If there is already an employee record existing with employee ID 2. Okay. So that is the meaning of these two records. So I'm just keeping this one enforce sharing rule, or you can, based on your requirement, right? You can select whatever option you want. Now here on actions, so there are these two options available, action on create and action on edit. Okay. So this one simply means that, like, do you want any action to be taken by this duplication rule on create, right? When you're creating a new record. So you can select the options accordingly, or if you want the duplication rule to be fired on the update of the record, right? So this is for insert, this is for update. Now here it is telling you that what do you actually want to do, right? If such a scenario come across where this duplicate rule is matching, then what you want to do? Do you still want to allow the creation of the record and just provide an alert and report to the user? Or do you want to block the user, right? So if you select block, then user will completely be blocked. The moment they click on save, right, they will not be able to proceed. The record will not get saved. Rather, they will get a message here that looks like there is already a duplicate in the org, okay? But if you keep it as allow, then it will only show the alert to the user. There will be, sorry, there will be a warning message here, but user can still go ahead and click on save and the record will be saved, okay? So that is the difference between allow and block. And the same thing you can do for the updation, right? When you're trying to update the record, do you just want to give the alert to user, or do you want to block them? So if you click on block, then they'll be totally blocked. But if you click on allow, then it will still allow the user. But then in that case, you have to click on alert and report so that at least the user will get the warning. All right. Or if you don't even want to show the warning, then you can just, like, keep it unchecked. All right, so that was the actions. Now here comes the matching rule. Okay, now just think, right, that you are creating a duplicate rule, but based on what criteria? Okay, how will the system know that what are the fields that you want to compare the existing records with, right? Because here are, like, there could be multiple fields on this employee record. There could be 50 other fields, right? I have only kept like these 3 fields, but there could be other 50 fields, right? In your project, like, whatever object you're working with. So you need to tell the duplication rule that what is your matching criteria, based on what you want to decide that it is a duplicate. Okay, so let's say in our case, let's just go ahead and create a matching rule. So I have not created a matching rule, so I can go ahead and create a matching rule from here. Or let's say if I would have clicked on here and I would have already created a matching rule, then that should have been, like, it would have shown up on this pick list. But as I have not created any, so it is not showing me any matching rule. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and create a matching rule. So the moment I click on it, it will save the duplicate rule, because now it will throw me to the another screen where I have to create the matching rule. So it is asking me that before you move there, save your duplicate rule. Okay, so I'm just saving the duplication rule and I'll go ahead and create the matching rule. Okay, so what is the matching rule that I want to provide? So I want to compare, let's say, employee ID. Okay, and I want to keep the match as exact. Okay. So if there is an employee ID, let's say 29, and if I save it and somebody else tries to create an employee ID with the same email ID as 29, so it has to exactly match for the duplication rule to get fired. Okay. If it does not exactly match, if someone is trying to create an employee record with an employee ID, let's say 291, then it will allow them, right? Because it has to be exact match based on the criteria that I'm providing here. So exact match. And then this one says match blank fields. Okay. So let's say, do you want to compare the blank fields? For example, for employee ID, exact and blank, right? So for example, let's say if I create an employee ID, if I create an employee record and I don't provide any value, and let's say if I simply save it, okay, and then someone else creates an employee record and they are also not providing employee ID. So that means my record also had the employee ID as blank, and the other person who is creating an employee record, there also the employee ID is blank. So what does it mean as per the rule? It is comparing the blank records, and it will say that, like, a match has been found. That means you're trying to create a duplicate, and we don't want to do that, right? We don't want to compare the blank values and fire the duplication rule, right? So that is why I'm not going to check on this. And then here, as I was saying, right, that you can create a matching rule based on multiple fields as well, right? Let's say if I want a combination of employee ID and email, right, then I can do that as well. So let's just first check on this one, and then I'll show you how you can work with multiple fields. Okay. So I'm only providing employee ID right now. So let's just save this. So this is my matching rule, and this was my duplication rule on which this matching rule has been created. So let's go back to the duplicate rule, and this was the duplicate rule. And here, this is the matching rule that we just created. Okay. And we need to activate this rule. All right. Okay, we need to activate the matching rule as well before we go ahead. And so here, this is the matching rule that I had created. So I'll activate this. Okay. And then I'll go ahead and activate the duplicate rule as well. Here. And then activate. All right. Okay. So now I have my duplicate rule in place. Also have my matching rule, and the matching rule and the duplicate rule both are active, right? Now we can go ahead and test this out. So I'll create employee. And what was the matching criteria? Matching criteria in the matching rule, we had kept this criteria, right? When the employee ID is having the exact match. Okay. So let's just go ahead and create an employee. So this employee, the one that I've already created, has an employee ID of 1. Okay. So I'm going to create another employee with the same employee ID. Robert. And let's just get something here. And I'm giving the same employee ID. Okay. And now you can see, right? This record looks like an existing record. Make sure to check any potential duplicate records before saving. And it is also giving me the link to see the duplicate record. Okay. So if I click on here, it shows me this. Okay. It shows that whatever employee ID I'm entering, right, that already exists on another record. Okay. So this is the warning. But if I click on save, right, it will still allow me to save. It did, right? Because in the duplicate rule, I have kept this, right? Alert report. Okay. And here you can see action on create allow. I'm still allowing it, right? I have not blocked the user. All right. So let's just go ahead and make some changes on the rule. So let's just check this one, block, and save this. All right. And it's already activated. Now I'll go ahead and create another employee with the same employee ID. So 1, and if I try to save this, you can see this, right? It gave me the alert that there are already duplicates. So if I click on view duplicates, it showed me both the employee records, right? Because I provided 1 as an ID on both the employee records, right? And if I try to save this, it won't allow me, right? Because there are duplicates, because I've blocked the user, right? So now, so this was the two options of allow and block in the create scenario. Let's just go ahead and try the same in the update. Okay. So in the update, I'm just directly checking for block, and let's just save this. And I'm going to close this out. So let's go ahead and try to update because both of them have, let me create another one with a different ID, okay? Robbie and, okay, and here, let's say 4 and save this. All right, so here, so now I already have these two employee records already have employee ID as 1, right? So if I go here and if I try to edit the employee ID and if I'll try to make it as 1, then it should not allow me to proceed. Okay. Here, right? Because now what I've done on update of the record, I have blocked it. Okay. So it's not allowing me. Now let's just see the second scenario. Okay. So let's say if there are more than one condition, okay, then what should happen? So let's say I want to create a matching rule. I want the duplication rule to be fired when the employee ID and email ID, both of them matches. Okay. Otherwise, I don't want to fire the duplication rule. So I need to go ahead and make some changes on the matching rule. So this was the matching rule. Okay. And let's just, so I think I need to deactivate and then edit it. Okay. I'll not directly be able to, okay. I think I need to clone it. Okay. Let's just clone it. Okay, so employee ID, and I also want to include the criteria for email. Okay, so exact match, email, and here I need to mention that what kind of logic I want. Okay, so two things, right? Either I can apply an AND logic. So if I write an AND logic, that means the rule is going to check if the email and the employee ID both exactly matches, then the duplication rule will fire and it will not allow me to create. But if I apply a OR condition, okay, then it will check at least one condition is true, right? If the employee ID is exactly matching, then it will not allow. Or if the email is matching, then also it will not allow. Okay, so based on your requirement, you can apply this rule. Okay, so let's just keep it as and for now and see and save this. All right, 2 and then okay, and let's just go to the duplication rule, and we need to change the matching rule. Okay, so the matching rule that we have created, this one, right? This is the new one, and let's just save this. Okay, the matching rule should be activated. All right, so rule 2, we need to activate this. Okay, and also the older one, right? Let's just delete it. It's of no use. It won't allow to delete because it is referenced here, but what I can do is I can deactivate this. Okay, so now I have only, all right, let's just first change the duplication rule here. Okay, so on this duplication rule, now I want to apply the new rule that I've created for email and employee ID. Okay, and I'm going to save this. And the second one, although it is not going to create any conflicts because I'm not using it anywhere now, but I just want to remove it. All right. And then, okay. So now in our duplication rule, we have a matching rule that is actually checking both the things. Okay. Employee ID and employee email. Okay. So I'm going ahead and let's just first create, I'm going to create a total new record. Okay. So let's say Aaron and Aaron. Let me give like a generic ID, test1 @ test.com, and employee ID, let's say 9. Okay. And let me copy this and save. So now when I create another employee, And let's say if I'm giving any name, okay, let's say if the employee ID matches, but if I give a different, sorry, if the email matches, this email is exactly what I provided on this record, right, Aaron? But if let's say if I give a different employee ID, it will allow me to save, right? Because the matching rule says both the fields should match, right? So now I'm going ahead and trying to create another employee record which exactly matches with the email and email ID of Aaron. Okay, Aaron, he has this email ID and this employee ID. Okay, 9. So new and then test. This email ID and employee ID is 9. Now it won't allow me. Okay, so save, and you can see here. Okay, and here it should show you Aaron. All right. So, and then you can open and see the employee details. So this will basically prevent users to, like, create duplicate records. Okay. So I hope you got the idea of, like, how to create duplicate rules and how you can create matching rule based on your criteria and different conditions that you want to have, right? And also, you know what, there was one more thing that even on, so matching criteria is a total different thing, as in, like, that based on what matching criteria you want your duplication rule to be fired, right? But then on the duplication rule itself also, right, if you have any kind of any kind of conditions, right, the initial conditions, that also you can actually provide. Okay, so if you edit a duplicate rule, so here you can see, right, conditions. So basically, for example, I'm just telling you that this is employee, right? So let's say uh employee can be, like, there might be different departments, right? Let's say department 1, department 2, department 3. And just imagine that on your employee records you have different record types, right? Let's say employee, um any kind of record type, right? Let's say business employee, or, like, non-business employee. Okay, so let's say you want to apply your duplication rule to be fired only for business employees, right? So here, those kind of criteria you can simply mention, like, here at this level itself, right? So you can kind of, you can search for the record type, and you can search for the operator equals, and then you can provide the value name. Okay, so that you can make sure that as per your requirement, if there are any initial filter criteria, then those criteria you can mention over here itself, right? So in the scenario that I just mentioned, that if you want your duplicate rules to be fired based on a record type, or let's say, like, any other criteria on the employee object or any object that you are working with, those conditions you can um, write down here itself. All right, and everything else, your matching criteria, you are going to set that in the matching rule. All right, so this is all about the data deduplication, okay, duplicate and matching rules in the Salesforce org. I hope you got the basic understanding of how to get this done, right? And so that's it about the session. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.